Welcome to Marketing Demystified, the podcast that connects the dots for business leaders to drive revenue through effective marketing strategy. We chat with marketing experts on different topics that will help you ramp up your revenue. We stream live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platforms. Marketing Demystified, the podcast, is presented to you by GrowGetter, your partner in growth marketing. And here's today's episode.
Hello, everyone. Are you ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered with actionable tips to transform your marketing game? You're in the right place. Welcome to Marketing Demystified. I'm your host, Jenn Mancusi, CEO and co-founder of GrowGetter, your growth marketing partner. Today, we are exploring how brands are built. And I don't know, maybe this will surprise you, maybe not, but your brand is not built through marketing campaigns or a well-designed website. It is built from the inside out. To help us understand this perspective, I'm joined by Stephen Pruitt, principal of Mountain View Group and a brand and culture strategist who's worked with global companies like Coca-Cola and UPS. Stephen believes that your brand is only as strong as your people's belief in it. And today he's sharing how aligning your internal culture with your external brand strategy can change how your company shows up in the world. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
Hi, Jen. So nice to be here.
So nice to have you. You're giggling already. We're going to have some fun today.
I love your intro. It's great.
Good. Well, I'm really excited to have this conversation because I think there is a lot of misconception about brand and what that means and the power of it. And so I'm really interested in hearing your perspective. And maybe we can just start from the beginning. Like, what does that mean? What does it actually mean to build brand from the inside out?
Sure. So what I believe is a successful brand delivers a powerful experience to the marketplace. But it can really only deliver on that experience if there's a strong foundational culture. If the people that do the work to make that brand come to life believe in it and sort of follow the value system that it reflects to consumers.
I totally agree. It's got to be, everyone has to be kind of rowing in the same direction and believing in that sort of core purpose or value that the brand is preaching. Otherwise, it doesn't necessarily come through.
Exactly. A couple examples. So I'm based in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's where we're headquarters. Delta Airlines is headquartered here. Big, prominent international brand. And one of their tagline is "Keep Climbing." And keep climbing requires, of course, safe airplanes, on-time schedules, but it also requires world-class customer service. And that only comes from the people that are delivering it. And they have to be in sync with the culture. Another one, Coca-Cola, also based in Atlanta, one of our clients for over 20 years. Their purpose is to refresh the world and make a difference. And the goal, of course, is the beverages they sell do that. But more than that, the people have to believe in that. And it's the things they do to activate that brand that are the foundation of the company. And a third example, another one of our longtime clients at Mountain View is GE Healthcare. And one of the things they say about their brand is that they're a leader in precision care, precision healthcare. And that precision comes from having the best talent in the industry that is behind the best innovations and technology in the medical imaging that they do. And so all of that brand promise is founded in the culture of the organization and the people that bring it to life every day.
I love that. And I feel like that has such a huge impact on the sort of growth and the performance of the business when you can sort of feel that culture, as a consumer of whatever product or service. I years ago heard Danny Meyer, the restaurateur, speak at a conference, at a marketing conference.
Yep.
And that was another, this is who I'm thinking about as you're talking of like
Mhm.
embodying that sort of culture. Famously, a lot of his restaurants, he's the owner of Shake Shack for anyone who
Right,
doesn't, but also has some very high end Michelin star restaurants. And they had,
right.
for the longest time, a no tipping policy because it
Ah,
was hospitality is included.
right,
You don't pay extra for a good
right.
experience. And he said on that stage that day, like, what if the food is free and you pay for the way the experience makes you feel? And there's something about, people that want to work for these places that
Mhm.
buy into that culture, right? And create that environment where then you as a consumer feel that hospitality or that experience. And it's sort of beyond the baseline when you're talking about Delta. Like, yes, I would expect at a baseline that if I'm getting on an airplane, that the company that is going to make sure it's safe for me. Like, that's not a differentiator for me in choosing airlines, like safe
Right.
baseline. But the experience that I'm going to have on that airline or whatever is going to be the difference between me choosing one or the other.
That's absolutely right. I love that Shake Shack example too.
He's great. I think about customer experience as a marketing tool all the time
Yep.
because of that, right? Like that's, when you think of some of the things in marketing that are hard to measure, like brand, like
Yeah.
word of mouth, like, things like that. It's about the experience and
Mhm.
not necessarily about an ad campaign or a tagline on a website at that point.
Right. Absolutely.
What do you think is the biggest disconnect between how founders believe that their brand is perceived versus how the employees actually experience or talk about the company?
Sure. Great question. So I think we often see leaders have a vision for the company, aspirational in their ideas, and the way they communicate with an organization. I think often there's a disconnect when the people that are in the day to day, doing the day to day work of the business, don't align with sort of the vision and aspiration of the leader. Um, and it's the best cultures are able to connect the vision of the company with what people are experiencing as employees there in their sort of day-to-day duties in their job functions.
Yeah, that's so. Uh, how do you? I guess it's probably harder with the larger the company,
Yeah.
right? To be able to have that impact. I guess how can a leader, um, like if they're having that problem today, like
Hmm.
I can see that my employees aren't really connecting with my vision and my aspiration, but it's very real for me as a leader, right? Like how do you then bridge that gap?
Sure. So too often, I think that leaders try to prescribe and define culture at the leadership level without interacting with the employees that are living it each day.
Mm.
So I think making those connections and making uh, building a culture, influencing a culture, starts from listening, having conversations with employees, with the people that are doing the work, and asking them about what is their experience, why do they work there, what is it that they're trying to accomplish with what they do every day, and then uh, you do that throughout the organization. It starts to build a narrative of what the best parts of a company are, the best parts of an organization. What is the consistent things that you hear from employees? And if you take that and find the connections, synthesize with what the aspirations and the vision of the organization are, that's when you can start to bring them together and create that story that does feel authentic to the people in the brand, that they do aspire to fulfill, and in the things they're doing each day.
Yeah, that's a great point, is to kind of, you've got to be in there with employees. And I think the other thing I'm thinking as you're talking is like, as your brand grows
Yeah.
and and you go from 10 employees to 100 employees to 1,000 employees, it's difficult to maintain that same culture that you had as a 10-person company or a 100-person company. And really, like what you're talking about, really listening and talking and being on the ground with the people who are doing the work, it almost becomes even more important because the culture is probably shifting and should shift, right? It should evolve as the company grows. You shouldn't, I don't think it's possible to maintain the same culture as you grow. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. So we work for all of our clients are big multinational
Mhm.
organizations, with thousands of people. And I think the best way to communicate culture and to influence culture is to showcase the people that are sort of doing it the best. We have a term we use that we highlight what we look like at our best. So, a leadership team can choose words that they feel define the values of the organization. They can come up with that very important mission, vision, values, language, sort of messaging framework that defines who we are. But I think the most powerful thing is to find the people that embody the spirit of those ideas. And if you showcase them and say, you know, um, Susie in marketing, did this last quarter, and that's what we look like at our best. Then people get to sort of see and feel and understand um, what the best of the culture is from their peers' actions and successes.
Oh, I love that. And that's such a great way to, like recognize the good. I mean, you hear that just in life in general. A lot of
Right.
companies are very good at pointing out when people are not quite doing something right, but not all companies are good at recognizing the good.
Right.
But what you're saying, I mean, there's sort of a domino effect there. It's not only a way to recognize that individual, but to demonstrate to the rest of the business, like this is what it means
Right.
to be living the vision and the values of the business, and carrying that through, which is really powerful.
Yeah, and especially when you're in an organization that has 100, 200, 300,000 people.
Yeah.
It can be easy to lose your place and your perspective on what your role is in feeding sort of the purpose of the organization, doing the best that it can do for its customers, for its shareholders, for its um, holders, and so just highlighting the good is a really great way to celebrate the people, but also to make the company stronger,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about that. Like, how does this like inside out approach make a brand stronger? How does it solve brand consistency problems and things like that? Like, what are the benefits in the end?
Sure. So if I believe that if when an organization has a strong culture, people sort of have the same value system, the same beliefs. It can be as simple as they speak the same words to talk about what the vision, mission, goals are of the organization. When people speak the same language and have the same perspective, they solve problems in a similar way. Um, Everyone appreciates that their peers' actions are all towards the same goal, towards delivering on a brand promise. Delta Airlines again is a great example. If the idea is to deliver world-class service, to keep climbing in that every day, and everyone believes it, then you get the team rowing in the same direction, as you said earlier. And how that becomes very sort of functional when you talk about operations is you want to take your best talent and move them to a different part of the business that needs um, sort of shoring up in one way or another. Then it's easier to move people because they're going from a place to another place that has a similar culture, a same value system, a same way to solve problems, the same goals. And so it becomes just a consistency that allows a especially multinational corporation to function all over the world in the same way. And I believe it can truly, sort of help an organization activate its strategy and achieve its goals, whatever those are: growth, revenue, a profit, etc.
That's like such a perfect segue because I'm so curious about how you align goals then to brand promise. So, especially, I mean, really interesting to think about moving people to different departments and kind of
Mm-hmm.
helping to lift up maybe areas that need a little bit of help. But, if the primary goal is to deliver on a brand promise, like
Mm-hmm.
climbing, how does that translate into measurable performance goals for teams and individuals, right? Like, I mean, and maybe the answer is the one that we all love. It depends. I won't steal your thunder from that. But yeah, how do you then like measure the achievement of that delivering that brand promise?
That's a great question. I, so when the goal of the brand can be sort of dissected into, here are the actions that it takes to achieve these goals. Whether it's excellence in manufacturing or innovation in technology or delivering on customer service, regardless of the industry you're in, you say, what does it take for us to be the best at the things we do? The things we do that allow us to deliver on a brand promise. And then everyone's familiar with this. It's typical to break that down into values, but what are the actions that make those values come to life? So when you can break it down into the actions of individuals, be that delivering on specific skill sets, being a positive communicator in the workforce, those sorts of things. And then what you're talking about is I believe what you asked about is, how do you make that actionable and important to each of the people in the company, and then measure them against how they do. Were you able to sort of live and perform these actions that contribute to the success that allows us to really deliver on the brand promise in the marketplace?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think like where that question is coming from is I feel like there's often a disconnect between the company overarching goal, and let's call that brand promise for now, right? Like we want to deliver on this specific brand promise and what people are actually tasked with doing. And
Mm,
oftentimes you see, people, individuals or teams or departments like, hey, we really need you to do X. We really need you to whatever it might be. Get more
hmm
get more followers on our one of our social media pages or whatever. And maybe that is connected to brand promise somehow, but the connecting the dots for people on how that actually helps to deliver on brand promise, or maybe it doesn't at all. Maybe it's a metric that is is actually in conflict with delivering on brand promise. And I would imagine that as organizations are larger, there's more risk of that. And so what you're describing, sort of taking that brand promise and breaking it down into actions that actually do lead to that, and
hmm
then setting goals, company goals, team goals, individual goals around that, I think is super important. I just think there's so many, like, I always say this, just because you can measure it doesn't mean you should. And
Yeah.
there's so many things that we as marketers or as salespeople or as business leaders are measuring that don't actually lead to our primary goal of the business. And I think that can create a lot of, uh, maybe misalignment in culture at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So employee engagement is a powerful thing.
Hmm.
Um, is what you're making me think of. Making sure that people know their roles, know why they're there, just have an energy and a purpose. So what are the actions you can do um, to make sure that your people are engaged. And we talk a lot about storytelling and the importance of that, because business leaders can talk about strategy, they can talk about finances, and people sort of intellectually work to understand that and see their role in it. But when you can tell stories about how people fit within the goals of an organization, it becomes more personal. And when you're talking about human stories and human connections, then that feels real and authentic. And so engaging people in a narrative about how, and calling them people, not employees, what your role is here, in a way that's empowering, that, you're building a career that you want to, that's important, then people, will have the enthusiasm and the energy to do the things to deliver on brand promise. So there are ways to make connections and ways to really authentically engage people in delivering on the goals of an organization.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. Can you walk us through a specific example of sort of the journey of transformation of a brand, like kind of starting with that internal culture piece?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I said we're based in Atlanta. We're sort of privileged to have worked with the Coca-Cola company for a long time.
Mm.
So back in 2019, they had a bit of an employee engagement problem. There was some retention issues, and then that led into COVID, where all of a sudden there was this great cultural disruption in the workplace. All of a sudden, people weren't going to the office anymore. Everyone was starting to wonder, what is our culture if everyone's working at home in their kitchen and their living rooms? And then sort of on the heels of that was, what we all know is that the Great Resignation, when people really started looking at their careers and questioning, what do I really want to do with my life? Do I want to work for a place like this? So all of a sudden, recruiting and retention was a very true operational problem at the Coca-Cola company. And so the leadership turned to the HR department and said, what can we do? We have an opportunity here to sort of reset how we do things to address the recruiting, getting the best talent in, keeping the people we have, and maintaining, what they've always been is truly an employer of choice in the CPG industry category. And the work that they began to do was to create sort of an employee experience brand called Thrive. And they engaged us very early in that process as their agency to help build out that employee experience brand. And what we did collaborating with them was to say, let's make Thrive look and feel and engage with people the same way a consumer brand does. Coca-Cola has always been one of the most powerful marketing companies in the world. And so let's take that same sort of creative, creative prowess and sort of intellectual brand building capacity, and let's do it internally. And so we worked with them to create a visual identity system, a brand narrative, tone of voice, values that was all aligned with sort of the purpose of the Coca-Cola company, but was very focused on employees to say, if you work here, this is the experience that we offer you. And it's experience of networking in a multinational organization, of career development opportunities, so you can build your skill set, of sort of mobility, to try out different functions to find where you feel best. And so as we did that, employees who, those who were wondering, do I want to work at a big company like this? All of a sudden were empowered, and felt listened to, and felt like I can see myself in this Thrive brand that offers opportunity to people at all levels of their career. And it created a more engaged workforce, and retention increased. Recruiting, it became more competitive, and the metrics, that the HR team was following for that, just got stronger. And when we started implementing it, and this was over a 2-year period, it was, in sort of one part of the HR function. But as it gained success, we were started implementing it in different types of employee touch points, the way they interact with, the various, parts of HR, across the business. And it just became a very powerful thing. And if you're looking for a job now at the Coca-Cola company, you'll see that Thrive brand represented in all the communication. So it's being used both internally, but also externally, as a very strong narrative of here's the the career you could have if you come work with us. And it's cool because it's a historic brand, a nostalgic brand, a powerful brand that is very recognizable on their logo, their products, and so being able to say that we're also a great place to work is a wonderful story for them. And we're our team is thrilled to have been a partner in that great work that they did.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think like as much as yes, it has an impact on recruiting top talent and retention, as you mentioned, but also that sort of public facing nature of it has a business impact too. People,
Yeah.
consumers more and more today are looking for brands with purpose and they want to support, whether it's a small business or a business that's charitable in a certain way or
Hmm.
has a certain value system like Patagonia or whoever it might be. And so to be able to demonstrate this is what our internal culture looks and feels like and how we care about and support our people,
Yeah.
is actually going to have an impact on people who are making a choice of, between soda brands today.
Sure.
And I think uh, larger, more established sort of legacy brands have a harder time with that than maybe some of the newer, smaller, more agile and more innovative that are coming out of the gate with a certain brand purpose. And
Hmm.
so it's interesting to hear what you're describing as like, this is a great way that you can kind of demonstrate that purpose, and that culture in a new way and sort of refresh it even after years and years and years of being around.
Yes, and there can be a difference in sort of a consumer brand like, uh, classic bottle of Coca-Cola, and the brand that the Coca-Cola company as a giant international corporation has. Because what at that level, at the corporate level, it's more it's more than the products. It's about being good for the world and all the things we do. So it's making sure they're paying attention, or have an active voice in recycling, being a CPG company, that they have an active voice, in just all the dialogue, that is about who they are and what they do. That's positive, and that is brings the best talent in the business, to work there and support all their goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So now if I'm a founder and I want
Mhm.
to take some steps towards, building a stronger internal brand that's going to have an impact externally? What are some steps I can take right away to work towards that?
Yeah. So I mentioned this earlier. Start with listening. To have a strong culture, it can't be prescriptive. When a leader tries to say this is who we are, it can fall flat. So a better way to do it is to talk about the goals of the organization and understand the experiences that the people who are doing the work are having. What are their beliefs? What do they believe the best parts of the organization are? And then synthesize that. So that's step one. Step two, synthesize that with the goals, the vision of the organization, and use that to create a narrative that does resonate with the people that work for you if you're a founder, and that also can be powerful messaging to share outside the organization in your marketing, in your sort of external facing PR and collateral. Recognize the people that are doing it best. Put a spotlight on employees that are living the values that demonstrate what we look like when we're at our best, and that becomes behavior modeling for other people in the organization. Make sure your leadership team is all on the same page. Make sure that they understand what we look like at our best. That people are using consistent language when they talk about, how do we achieve the aspirations of our company. And then sort of last, I would say, sort of activate and enable peer-to-peer type communications. There are different sort of big multinationals are using different types of internal social platforms that allow people to share their experiences. And that sort of communication can be really powerful when the people that work in a big company are telling the story themselves, using the same language, using the same value system, and it's not just coming top down from leadership, then you have a culture that's sort of firing on all cylinders, and I think gives you a better shot at achieving sort of the biggest goals that a company has.
That's great. Thank you so much. I love just the sort of starting with the employees, right? And people. You made that distinction earlier that it's about the people and not necessarily calling them employees. And starting there, I think is so great. At a previous company I was at, we were noticing that the culture was shifting.
Yeah.
And rather than try to define it and tell everyone what the culture should be, we went through an exercise where we, as a leadership team, everybody kind of highlighted their top 3 employees in the company.
Yeah.
And we looked at the qualities of those top 3s in everybody's kind of lists and said,
Wonderful. Yeah.
this is what the culture of the business is. It's these top people that we have. And then used that to define the new version of that culture. Cause like I mentioned, like the company was growing, there was all types of new people and new processes. And it was very different from what it was, with half the team or whatever. And looking at it that way versus, as you mentioned earlier, like you can't just have the leadership team say, this is what our culture is. Let me tell you what our culture is. Please get on board. But actually looking and listening and, sort of shaping based on, I love, you've said it a couple of times, this concept of what do we look like at our best.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And that's a great way, just mindset, I guess, to go into it with.
Yeah. I agree.
Amazing. Well, Thank you so much for joining us. We've had some, great engagement with our audience today. Thanks for everybody for joining. Hi, AJ. I like all of our employees as well. And we're just coming to the end of this episode. So I hope if you just joined us that you'll go back and listen from the beginning. But thank you so much for joining, Stephen, and sharing valuable insights on branding from the inside out. I love that.
Thank you, Jen. It's been a real pleasure to talk with you.
Absolutely. Make sure you're following Stephen on LinkedIn for more insights. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to Marketing Demystified wherever you get your podcasts, and join us next time for more conversations that help demystify the complex